Welcome to the Sci-Fi Diner podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Scott Herzog.
And good evening, I'm Miles P. McLaughlin.
I'm Chrissy Raffensperger.
And I'm Dave Sellers.
And tonight we have an exciting show for you. We're going to be sharing an interview that Miles and Dave had a chance to do at Shore Leave this year. And who is that interview, Miles?
So I had the pleasure, and Dave had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Robbie Duncan McNeill. A lot of people know him as a great director and producer, but he first cut his teeth acting. 7 seasons of Star Trek Voyager. He also played a supporting role in the He-Man Masters of the Universe live-action movie back in the 80s. So,
Wow.
but yeah, I had a great conversation with Mr. McNeill, and yeah, he was great.
Yeah. Well, talking about Star Trek, we're also going to be giving our thoughts on the wrap up of Strange New Worlds and also the musical episode. And then we'll talk a little bit more, a little bit about the writer's strike and how it's impacting. We talked about that at nauseum the last show. We're going to talk about in particular how it's impacting the science fiction that we love and one of the reasons we do this show and how it's impacting that down the line. So we're going to be talking about that as well. And maybe some of anticipations and hopes we have for Ahsoka that's coming down the line here in just a week or so. So excited about all of that. But before we get into all that, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what's happening in our science fiction universe. So, Dave, can we start with you this time?
Well, we certainly can. Watched the last 2 episodes of the season for Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which we'll talk about later on. The season finale was probably one of the best episodes of Trek I think I've watched in a while. I loved that episode, and I cannot wait for season 4. 3. Yeah, season 3.
You know what? He's so confident that season 3 is going to rock. He can't wait to season 4 too.
You're darn right. You're darn right.
I got your back.
Either that or he thinks that season 3 is going to suck so bad he's hoping for season 4.
No, this ain't Discovery, so I'm not worried about it at all.
No,
Wow.
he's so confident.
Wow.
Yep. The guys in the next room can't get it together, so I'm not worried about this one at all. I'm looking forward very much to the start of that next season.
He's like all the suckets over there.
The suckets in the other room. That's right. Really looking forward to Ahsoka next week for its series premiere, which is going to be amazing. My sci-fi world's been very thin. I've been on my PS5 quite a bit. Did get a little behind on the YouTube episodes of this podcast, but the last 2 shows we've done are now up. So go to youtube.com, look up the Sci-Fi Diner, and give us some views, give us some follows, give us some likes, subscribe, get notified, all that great stuff you all know how to do because you're all much better at this than I am.
So YouTube, we are on YouTube.
We are on YouTube. One thing I do want to do, and hopefully try to bring this into a regular segment. I want you guys who listen to this show, I see the numbers of downloads, I see all this stuff on here. I want to try to get people involved a little bit. I want to get some listener feedback, some listener input, so I'll bring to the show and read on your behalf since you can't be here. So to start this process off, one thing I'm going to do, I have here in my possession, I don't know if anybody collects these things or not. I won it in a raffle basket some point years ago. It's been sitting in a drawer in the container. I just want to get rid of some stuff. So I have one of the Hamilton collection.
You're going to give them all your junk. Good.
No, this is not junk. This is
treasure.
collectible stuff that I don't collect and I don't have a need for. So this is one of the Hamilton collection Star Trek commemorative plates for the episode Unification. For the first listener that responds to sci-fi diner podcast at gmail.com that says they want this thing, I will put it back in its original package with the official matching certificate of authenticity, and I will ship it to you at no cost to you. So, get the email in there. The first one who responds with your name, I'll get back in touch with you, and it'll be yours. Sci-fi Diner Podcast at gmail.com.
There you go. So You know you're supposed to email.
That's it. And that, my good friends, is wrapped up my sci-fi world.
Yeah, well, and maybe if they do have anything to contribute, any thoughts, you can obviously share them as well.
Send them on to sci-fi diner podcast at gmail.com. And leave comments.
We'll share it in this segment here.
Yeah.
Hey, so Chrissy, what's going on in your sci-fi world?
Well, I've almost finished all of my Mythic Plus runs. I have to do probably one more tonight, and then I get my mount.
Nice.
So, because my reading is up where it needs to be, took me a little bit to get into it, and then I had to wait, for all the things to cycle through. So, have to do that. So I'm excited there. I have been doing my homework and watching Picard, season 3. I do like it so far. So, it's good. I would say, towards the upper end of the standard deviation of the mean. So we'll see whether or not it reaches 2 or 1 or 2 standard deviations above. So, my classic.
Tough critic.
Well, because if you're constantly saying everything is above average, then what's average at a certain point? So we're just gonna, make it. See, he knows what I'm talking about. He knows that C's used to just be the good grade, and B's were when you were doing good, and A's were for when you really did well. And now we don't have that anymore. I don't know why, but that's okay. Well, maybe it's not okay. But anyways,
I blame Oprah. It's like, you get an A, you get an A, you get A. Everybody get A's.
that is so true. So, and then because I've been watching Picard and doing my Mythic Pluses, I haven't been reading as much, but I did, and I purposely slowed myself down to read Lightbringer by Pierce Brown, which is 6 of the Red Rising series, which I know Scott's not that into. I absolutely loved this.
I read the first 3 books.
I normally I'm really I don't. Once the trilogy is over, we don't revisit it. We're done. I don't care what you write. It's not good. We're not going to pay. You're going to ruin what you did before, because normally that's what happens with authors is they write these wonderful books, wonderful trilogies, and then they decide to come back to it and they just ruin it. This is why we don't watch, sequels of things. Looking at you, Star Wars. Of good movies. We just leave it be. Just don't touch it. It's good. Sometimes you just keep adding too much salt. It will ruin the whole dish. This was not the case. This has been an absolutely phenomenal sequel series to the original. I 100% recommend people read it if they liked the first 3 books. It was even more phenomenal than the books before it, and I just cannot stop singing his praises. It's really, really flipping good. I also read Spellmonger, which I'm trying to think the author's name of that. It's by Terry. It starts with an M. His is it's okay. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Dresden Files, kind of that kind of style. If Dresden Files was set in the medieval period.
Okay.
So, if you like the Dresden Files, you'll probably like Spellmonger. I personally like the Dresden Files a little bit more. I feel like it's a little bit more mature storytelling. Spellmonger was a little bit juvenile for me. I felt it was more written for teenage boys. It's not bad, but it's just a little immature storytelling, and I'm just
got it.
I'm mid-30s. I kind of am over that kind of stuff. I just am. Maybe when I was a teenager, I would have enjoyed it more, but
yeah, but were you telling us that your brain's still teenage? So maybe. You said that earlier.
My sleep pattern is still a teenage sleep pattern. Let me clarify that.
Okay.
I was lied to. I was told that my sleep pattern would shift out of teenage sleep pattern into adult sleep pattern by the time I was 25, and that was a vicious lie.
Got it.
my sleep pattern is not.
Right.
But it's really good. I should say it's really good, but it's decent. And now I'm on to the three body problem. And I'm gonna totally mistake how to say his name. Sinan Lu? I'm not sure how to say that.
Yeah.
It's yeah. But anyway, so I'm starting on that. So that has been my sci-fi world.
All right. Very good. Very good. Miles, what's going on in your sci-fi world?
Not a lot. There's just not a lot of new stuff being put out. So I did see the last two episodes of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. I saw a trailer for season 2 of Star Trek Prodigy, which I think really looks good, but unfortunately, we're not sure where we're going to get it. What else did I? The show on Amazon, Carnival Row season 2 is back. I watched the first episode of that. I enjoyed that. I think I'll probably watch that. I tried to watch the new Superman animated series on Max, and I couldn't get through the first episode. It's just the tone is just. I don't know if it's just geared towards kids or teenagers. It's a little too amped up for me. And the voice actor is Jack Quaid, the voice of Boimler. He plays Clark Kent, Superman in this, and it's just a different tone. So I try to watch it. I usually enjoy most things Superman, but I couldn't watch this. I did get a new time travel novel. It's called Time Shudder by Elise Douglas. I'm about 2/3 of the way through that right now. So that's all that's going on in my sci-fi world. I'm looking forward to Ashoka also. I think that's really that's down the pike. I was looking at what shows are coming back, got me onto the whole writer's strike. That's why the shows I want to see aren't back.
Right.
Come back to him.
Very good, very good. Well, in my sci-fi world, of course, Strange New Worlds, which we're going to talk about, the 2 episodes. Kiefer and I finished the 2nd season of Good Omens on Amazon Prime. David Tennant and I forget the other guy's name right now. Everyone's shouting at the screen because they know it. But these 2 actors are just phenomenal at playing off each other, and it was absolutely a fantastic series. I did not like the ending because I felt it was forced, and Kiefer agreed with me that it felt forced. But I did like the story in general. It was a very good story, and there was a good twist at the end. There were some parts in the end I did not necessarily enjoy. That's Good Omens, and I did read the book Good Omens, which I had never read before, by Neil Gaiman and Terry Goodkind. I think it may be that, or Terry Pratchett wrote that. And season 1 follows the book follows is the premise for season 1, and they follow each other pretty closely. Probably one of the most faithful adaptations of a book to TV series that I've ever encountered. I'm on book 8 or 9 of the Dresden Files, so maybe after I finish the next 20 books, Chrissy, I will go to that medieval series that you're suggesting.
Well, that one has 15 books, so
okay,
I mean,
so I have a while, and I'll probably get sidetracked somewhere along the way there. But
side quests are fine. Like,
Yeah.
you'll get to the main quest
true.
eventually.
I did begin a series about soldiers that are immortal with is it Charlize Theron or whatever? I forget. I'm totally mispronouncing her name.
Old Guard? Is that what it's called?
Can't hear you, Mom.
Old Guard?
Pardon us, we are experiencing technical difficulties.
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you, Miles.
All right.
I can hear you.
Yeah, Scott's got
Okay.
an
Although
issue.
it sounds like Scott's sound changed. Like,
Yeah, are you okay? Are you there?
There we go. You're a little quiet now.
There we go. All right.
so I think it was the setting on
Yeah.
Scott's end.
Hey, can you hear me?
Barely.
Yeah.
I can.
Barely.
Yeah.
I don't know why you need barely. coming through good.
Yeah, your volume went up for a couple seconds and went down.
Now I got nothing.
Got nothing?
There you go.
Okay, I hear you now.
All right. Then we'll take that.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyways, who is the girl? She was an influx.
Charlize Theron.
Thank you. I cannot say her name with the darn. I can't think of it. Anyways, she's in this one, and these four soldiers are kind of immortal, and they can like heal. I don't know that it's a real recent movie. I'm about halfway through it. Trying to think if I watched anything else. Oh, I began watching season 2 of Foundation, which is on Apple TV. I watched the first season and said, "Well, I don't have anything to watch right now. Maybe I'll watch it," which tells
Is
you
that
that
the
it
same
was
as the book?
yeah. So it's based on the novels by Asimov.
Yeah, I read that. Is it?
And Asimov's grandson has a hand in directing it. So.
Oh, interesting. Maybe I will watch it.
So I think the beauty of it is it's been a long time since I read those books, and I'm like, oh, this is nice, But I don't have a real religious attachment to the book, and having this be a faithful adaptation, so I don't know how close it is.
I said that about Wheel of Time, but then I was watching it, and they kept going, "No, that's not it. That didn't happen." And then
Yeah. So to be fair, I'm looking forward to season 2 when that drops, because I think I'm hoping it redeems itself.
It won't.
They had COVID cut in the middle of that show, and then when they came back, the guy that was playing Matt Coffin, he dropped out of the show because of mental health issues, which obviously you need to take care of that. But it did change the show, and
Yes.
so yeah. But I think that's Sci-Fi World. I think those are it. I've been watching a lot of League of Legends as always, and just enjoying that as well. So. Yeah.
Cool.
There you go. That is my Sci-Fi World.
Do we know when Arcane is dropping season 2? Speaking of League of Legends.
Yeah. So you know what? I thought I saw a trailer for it, but I think it may have been a fan-made trailer. So I've not heard. I'm guessing next year with how long it takes them to make the animated episodes. So.
I'm gonna look this up.
Yeah, you go ahead and tell us.
It is.
We'll find out here for you, because we all need some more Jinx in our lives.
Late 2024.
Yeah,
So
see, that's what I thought. So.
Yeah, this is as of 6 days. Release date rumors. So we'll just keep on checking back.
Was that a game?
No, it's the animated series for League of Legends.
Okay.
So
You need to go watch it.
It got critical acclaim. You do not need to be a League of Legends fan, although if you are, there's a lot of Easter eggs in it for people that are fans. But the show itself is really moving. Like the girl that ends up being Jinx, like you feel why she ends up the way she does.
Yeah,
Great character development.
I think it's really good character development. I think it's really good depiction of like different people's reactions to trauma. It doesn't like use the trauma, because sometimes people will use in story writing, they'll use trauma to justify someone's like negative actions, and that's not okay. Like, just because something bad happened to you does not mean that you are not still responsible to make good choices. It might make it harder for you to make good choices, but you still need to do that and still work on yourself.
Right.
But it definitely shows how someone who's gone through that, and then under someone who raised her to be a certain way, and the difficulty it is being in that environment to make good choices. And so you really do feel for her.
Yeah.
And you feel for her sister and the other things, and you see kind of like both sides of things. That's also one of the reasons why I really like the Red Rising series, especially this new trilogy, is you are able to see both sides of the equation. And normally I don't do like this whole morally gray and both sides have merit, because 9 times out of 10 authors don't write it very well, like both sides very well, to be very convincing. Both in Arcane and in this other, and then Lightbringer, I felt they did a really good job of that. I mean, there was still fairly clear what you like the author, like what they think, but or even the storytelling of the show writers think, but it still made compelling arguments where you could say, you know what, I can understand why someone would think this way. I can understand why they make these choices. And so feeling empathy for them while still holding them accountable.
Yeah.
So I really like that.
Ooh.
Very good. Why don't we head into our things we're going to talk about tonight?
Yay.
So I think first on the docket is Strange New Worlds, the last 2 episodes. Now, Chrissy, just to be upfront, you did not watch Strange New Worlds, right?
I did not, but you know what? If it's like, I'll probably watch the musical episode, just because if there's a musical episode of a show in a genre I like, I'm there. I mean, the musical, I will fully admit, I did not get into Buffy the Vampire Slayer until they had the musical episode, and then I was like, I don't even know what this is, but I'm sold.
I'm watching it. So let's
I'm such a sucker for musicals.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this. And can I talk? Do you guys care if I go first?
Go ahead.
Please.
I
Yeah,
care
so
so much.
You care.
I want
yeah.
Dave to go first.
Yes.
No, you don't.
So I whenever you hear down the pipe that the show is doing a musical episode, there are a couple possible feelings like, how's this going to go? And how's it going to feel? And, how well do they pull it off? And you may or may not be a musical fan if you're a Star Trek fan, but this felt very much like the singers were all strong. I didn't feel like there was really weak singers in it. I felt like they were singing. I was pleasantly surprised. Favorite thing was the Klingon K-pop boy band. That was fantastic. And
I'm in love.
Yes, absolutely. So, but Uhura and Spock just have fantastic voices. I really did enjoy not only the premise that when they sang, they were like revealing their emotional hearts, and that this was something that they're trying to solve.
So
But I
is this like
felt like
some
it
sort
was.
of alien
I felt like I
virus
was
thing?
watching. I felt like I was
Essentially.
watching an episode of Glee, a little bit,
Yeah.
but a much better Glee.
Dave
Because
is
of
dying
just
inside.
it was
Look at him.
just yeah, it is. But I really appreciated this. And let me say this: I go back. This is the only Strange New Worlds episode that I've watched 3, and if you count the times I've just listened to the songs, 4 times that I've actually watched this episode.
Look
So-
at Dave's disgust. I love it.
It is fine because it doesn't have to be for everyone.
It's
right?
not discussed either.
Yep.
He's just
And
like,
um,
oh, it's like
cautious.
no. He's
yeah.
like,
So
3 or
you
4
may not be
times.
into it, but what was it?
3 or 4 times.
Yep.
scoffing.
Yeah. So like literally, I watch it. Kiefer goes, "You're watching this again?" Because he goes, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's Star Trek." So I think maybe we should just start by talking about the musical episode before we get into the finale. I really appreciated it. I really liked it. And there were some great and funny moments because of the characters. What made it funny was knowing these characters and then putting in these situations that would never be them made it all the funny.
That is quite amusing. I mean, do
Dave?
you have a show if you don't have a musical episode? I mean, come on.
So look, when we found out this was coming,
It's our idea, Dave. Right?
I know, and
It's
while
your fault.
it was,
No.
and while that was hilarious, to actually see it done, I'm not gonna lie, I was cringing big time. I'm still. I still don't know whether I loved it or I didn't. But I will say this. to take the way they took the musical aspect of it and worked it so perfectly into a legitimate Star Trek storyline was outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
The character development you got out of this was absolutely outstanding. I honestly, I could have done without the Klingons because that was just...
It was just silly.
That was stupid. That was just downright stupid and ridiculous. If I'm a Klingon singing, it's going to be some...
I'm going to love it. It's going to be my favorite thing in the world.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
It is my faith of the heart right there. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is my faith of the heart. So, if I'm having a bunch of Klingons singing, that's fine, but make it Klingon. Guttural, just like German death metal level kind of stuff is what I'm looking for out of them. All right.
Opera.
Yes, some Klingon opera looking thing. That would have been on the nose perfect, and that would have been a great episode.
Metal, that's what you wanted.
That's fine. I'll take that.
Okay.
I'll take that.
I'm also very interested in Miles' reaction because his faces during Scott's thing were quite amusing.
Now, the part that pissed me off the most, and it still just irritates the living crap out of me, is the fact that, again, another example, how the same franchise, the same production company...
What it is. Dave, can I predict what you're going to say?
Go right ahead.
Is it Kirk?
No.
It's not Kirk.
No,
it's not his love interest.
I have no problem
Lens flares.
with Kirk in this.
There
I
were
have no problem with
flares in
that.
it.
No lens flares. My problem is that this franchise, this production company took a freaking musical and roped it into a legit, amazing Star Trek storyline. This same group cannot make a decent season of another show in that franchise. That just pisses me off to no end because I see the potentials. And it's just
what I say
wasted.
to help myself cope in those situations, Dave?
JJ's not involved. I can't even blame him.
No, I just say that clearly they pass it off to some
maybe
interns, and we're just going to have to blame the interns.
That's it.
You're just going to say, listen, they must have interns on this. I don't know what else to say.
No, the best
the
the
only
writers...
explanation.
Listen, the best the writers could honestly do right now is completely disown Discovery and tell everybody these scripts were written by AI. This is why we don't want it.
I used to do an intern.
What's that?
Discovery's canceled, isn't it?
This is his last season coming up, yes, thankfully. But again, outside of that, the way they pulled this off was absolutely outstanding. It truly was. It is a memorable, going to be a classic episode down the line. It's going to have to be. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not fanboyed like Scott was out of the deal. I'm not exactly the biggest fan of musicals, but I got to give credit where it's due. This was pulled off.
If they release it on vinyl, I'm picking it up.
Oh, I would buy it for you if they released that on vinyl.
Thank you. You let me know.
I will.
Yeah, but Miles wants the vinyl too. You can tell it.
I'm just very interested his reaction.
So am I.
Yeah, so Miles, let's hear your awesome review of episode 9.
I thought this was a steaming pile of pure genius.
All right.
So I love musicals. I don't care if people break out in song and dance. I can't do it myself. I wish I could, but it's not something I can do. So I appreciate it when people who are really talented can do it and pull it off. I enjoy community theater. I have seen many Broadway shows over the decades. A lot of my CD collection is of Broadway shows. So Star Trek the musical, sure, why not? Just make sure it doesn't suck. This didn't suck. I thought, I have to echo what Dave said. They told a good story. They made it plausible. Just there's a universe out there. They break out in song and dance. That's how they communicate. There's Star Trek explored other strange things about that. I've been following the memes about, people complain this sucked. Star Trek never had music, and Star Trek had lots of music over the decades. That's just not true.
There's lots of times where Data is singing.
Data is singing. Uhura
Uhura
is
sang
singing.
all the time.
Spock.
Picard's whistle.
Spock played a lute. Riker on the trombone. Music played a big part of Star Trek throughout the series. So somehow it's better. It's a lot better than it deserves to be. Somehow this should have been an absolute train wreck, but somehow they managed to keep this train on the tracks. And what Dave said was right as far as telling the story, but also somehow when these actors are singing their songs, it advances the story. It's like it moves and progresses their stories moving forward. It's not just a production number. It's like this song has it's for the most part it's going somewhere. And when I heard Spock sing his song after things aren't going well at Chapel, it hit me in the feels. That one spoke to me as far as just the emotion of that one. And as far as the Klingons doing boy band K-pop, if it was a long number, I would probably have been bothered by it, but it was very short. It is so antithetical to the Klingons. Even when the Klingon starts talking and he can't get the words out, he has to just have to start singing it, and his homies have to join in and dance to it. It's ridiculous, but it's fun. It's not too long, so I can forgive it. I give it free pass. Be entertained.
When you think about it, though, juxtaposition is very much how they have portrayed the Klingons. Because I still remember, when they're talking about how a Klingon date, the woman is like, I guess, throwing things at the guy, and he's sitting there reading her poetry. So I mean, if you think about it, it does kind of work.
So
the females are probably going to be singing your death metal, and the men are going to give you the K-pop. This is now my new theory about Klingon and their different musical genres that exist in their culture, and it's by gender.
Scott, do you remember years ago at Farpoint when they had some dance choreographer doing a dance lesson on Michael Jackson's Thriller? Do you remember that at all?
I do remember that.
Do you remember the two brothers that cosplay together as the Klingons?
Right.
They took part in the Thriller. You have Klingons doing the Thriller. That sort of reminded me of that. When I saw it. I'll send. I got the video. I have the video saved. I'll send it to you.
I'd be interested in that one.
Juxtaposition is very much established for Klingons. I think that we can allow this.
But no, this was a great episode. I thought
you're ahead of me,
these people.
No, I'm right.
A lot of these people got really great singing, really good voices. They must have done some singing in the past. The actress who plays Uhura, I thought she was really good. I don't know if everybody in there sings. I don't know if they had some help as far as the recording studio goes, but I don't care. It was very entertaining, and it still managed to tell a good story that advanced the plot and advanced everybody else's story along the way. And so, like I said, it should have been a train wreck, but the train made it to its destination. The actor who played the one Klingon general. They brought he played Hemmer. He played the Enar engineer. They brought him back. I'm still mad they killed Hemmer. I miss Hemmer. But they brought the actor for a supporting role in this episode. Hopefully we'll see him again. But yeah, this was a great episode. I'm thinking sometime we need. I mean, musical episodes are a lot of sci-fi fantasy shows. Maybe we'll have to do a special on the musical episodes someday.
Yeah, our favorite musical episodes. Do you remember the Fringe musical episode?
Vaguely. I'm gonna have to go. Now that you say that, I sort of yeah.
That was also a fun one.
I remember the was it not Continuum? The one with oh shoot. Well, we'll have to do like good sci-fi fantasy.
We'll simply have to do musical episodes.
There we go.
Sanctuary. That's the one I was thinking of. Sanctuary.
Oh,
They did,
yes.
they did a musical episode.
Okay.
So, yeah, I loved it. It was great. I mean, I've been dogging on season 2 of Strange New Worlds, and first half, they did some things I don't care for, but they seem redeeming themselves these last few episodes.
Well, just so you know, for a while it was a #1 iTunes album.
I
And
bought it.
Oh, you bought it? Yeah,
Yeah.
and the #1 soundtrack. So just so you know, like, do that have an impact? But well, let's move on into the finale episode. Dave, I'm going to let you go first because this is the one that you were absolutely stoked about. Tell me a little bit about what about the finale really turned your crank?
Well, I've always been fascinated with the Gorn. You see them once in the original series. They're really never mentioned much again. The only other time that in Trek that you really see them all is Star Trek Online. That's really the only other time you really get to see them. So the fact now this is like the second or third time they've actually brought them in to Strange New Worlds. I love it. It just they're a great villain. I mean, it's something different, and it's established already, which is awesome. The way this whole story ran, and the climactic, there's some high stakes stuff happening the whole time between. And again, I've only watched this episode once, in the series once, so my names are pretty bad. But the other captain love interest of Pike, Patel, not knowing what happened to her, all the stuff with Chapel, thinking she's dead, the emotional roller coaster with it, and the defiance to go try to find them and rescue them. And honestly, one of the biggest things that got me excited was the introduction of another loved character back into this show. Everyone's favorite future chief engineer, Montgomery Scott. Oh, I about jumped out of my seat when I heard him talking and I heard that accent. I was just jumping for joy. It's Scotty! That was, and I'm like, okay. Now we're bringing this one back. So, and then it gets me really excited where I've got, now you've got Captain Kirk, or James Kirk back. You've got Spock. You've got Uhura. You've now brought Scotty into it. If, as Strange New Worlds makes its run, whenever that run ends, if they do not do a proper reintroduction of the original series, it will be a crying shame. I would be all for that as long as you keep JJ away. Because the guys they have playing these characters, the way these characters are developing, are very much in line with the characters we all knew and loved. And I have no problem at this point reinventing that show and showing us more of Kirk's 5-year mission. I have no problem with that. Keeping the writers and everything the same that you've got going now is just would be an amazing show. So this got me really, really excited. And the fact is a cliffhanger was disappointing, and I hate that I'm going to have to wait another God knows how long now to get the next season. But that was an outstanding season finale. One of the better ones I've seen in Star Trek in a very long time, as far as the season finale goes. But that's my take.
Miles, how about what were your thoughts on this finale?
I thought it was a very solid season finale also. I thought the way they filmed it, Captain Patel and crew are on this planet, and then her communications cut out, and then they see this big giant spaceship coming through the clouds. It was very reminiscent of Independence Day, but scarier.
Yeah, it was. You're right.
So, um, so I thought it was good cinematography. I'm still not thrilled what they're doing with the Gorn. I don't. I wish they would have called this alien race something else besides the Gorn, because in the original series, the implication was this is the first time we ran into the Gorn. So we are kind of screwing with canon a bit here. But be that as it may, this alien race is very scary. So they did a good job with that. The cinematography was excellent. So the ship being in pieces, they make use of the debris to send a shuttle down. They make use of the debris to fight the Gorn with. Very very solidly written show. I was stoked when I heard Scotty. I like the new Scotty. He's just early in his career, but he's already a miracle worker in his young career, and so I'm hoping, hopefully he'll be a regular on season 3, or at least a supporting character or something. I suspect we're probably going to eventually, if we see Scotty, eventually we're going to see Bones. As far as kind of doing TOS again, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I mean, I do like a lot what they're doing with Strange New Worlds, but I don't know. I mean, TOS was my Star Trek. I don't know if I really want them messing with that. If they do, I'll watch it because it's Star Trek. But yeah, I'm not sure I'm thrilled with that. So I think we probably have to wait at least a year for season 3. Yeah, the end made me mad, but at the same time I appreciate it. As far as cliffhangers go, it made you wanting more, and it put Pike in a really bad spot. He has orders not to engage the Gorn, and he can't shoot back, but the Gorn have his crew, and they have him over a barrel, and just they made you wanting more at the end. So that's good storytelling. If you're mad that it ends that way, the writers did something good.
Yeah, you don't want a cliffhanger where you're like, I mean, if all of a sudden this show got canceled, I wouldn't care. Like, that's not a good sign.
Yeah, so it's a double-edged sword, right? Because there's shows that we loved that had great cliffhangers, and then they cancel them, and then you're frustrated because nothing's wrapped up. So one of the things I do appreciate about this episode is it's not all cliffhanger. Like, we do rescue Pike's girlfriend, but she's infected with eggs. We do rescue Nurse Chapel. And so there is some resolution to some of this things that were happening, just not total resolution, so that there's still story to tell and saying, okay, how are they going to figure their way out of it, right? And so I think there's some of that. I too appreciated the Scotty introduction. He's fantastic. The actor conveyed enough of Scotty, the original Scotty, in his voice and stuff that made you say, okay, I can believe this guy, but also wasn't trying to just replicate it,
Right.
which is always a challenge. I think it's what makes Kirk a little bit difficult to swallow in this series for me, and I'm okay with him, right? But he's just not quite enough Shatner in him. But I don't want him to be Shatner either, right?
Right.
So there's that double-edged sword, right, with it. They do they do potentially be seeming to bring enough of the characters in that potentially we could spin off into some, original series episode type crew. Like we have Uhura, we have Kirk, we have Spock, we have
So would
Gotti.
that
So we have enough of the crew that this potentially could spin off into something, right? Whether they should spin off into something is the question, right?
Well, just quick clarification, because I'm not watching this show, so I just want to make sure that I understand. So this is still following the original timeline, correct? It's not the weird JJ whatever that is
Yes,
that we don't talk about.
correct.
Okay,
Although don't get Miles started, because there's enough deviation in this show that Miles would say they aren't really following the prime timeline as much as Miles would like. So don't get him started. That's all I'm saying.
well, I mean, with larger shows, multiple seasons, multiple spin-offs, continuality can be a little bit of a difficult thing to keep track of. So is it within the acceptable deviation, as it were, for such a large franchise to have these slight deviations? We're like, well, it actually, in this episode over here, this was established here, and then they kind of changed it over here. I mean, even our own timeline has, continuality problems. The Mandela effect is very well documented. So maybe that's what they're suffering from.
Maybe Miles, your thoughts on this?
I
Is
have a
this
whole new theory
within
to
the
explain.
acceptable? Is this within the acceptable deviation for you?
In my head, canon, this is happening in an alternate timeline. This is not the prime timeline.
Okay, so
Okay.
it is beyond the acceptable deviation from the standard mean to determine that this is an alternative timeline. Okay. So I was going to ask.
Now, not that I had the power to designate it as such. The powers that be, CBS, people that own
I mean,
Star-
I just designate all the new Star Wars as not canon. So, I mean, I think that we do have the power.
Well, there you go.
I've crowned Miles king of Star Trek.
So with Miles' argument that this is not the prime timeline, then I'm all for them spinning this off into a new original series with this new crew, because it's not going to be the prime timeline anyway. So screw it all. I like these characters. I like the Spock. I like this. Uhura's fantastic. In fact, we get more Uhura than we ever got in the original series. And I'm really enjoying these characters. And my only question, I think, in all of it is, can Kirk be a good front man for the show? And that's my question. I'm not sure I have an answer for yet. I do like him as a character, but I'm not sure he's quite capturing the way I'd want a front runner to capture it if we chose to spin this off into a new original series.
See, I was gonna ask, like, would the new series just be supplemental episodes of hey, we told some of the stories, but we didn't tell all of the stories of the 5-year thing. So here's some other stories, and kind of pepper them in together, But if we're just gonna say it's a brand new timeline, well, then go for it. All in.
Do whatever.
Lens
get
flares
JJ
and all.
to direct the new series, and we'll be fine.
And you know what? Well, just for old time's sake, we'll make sure that the intro song is the Klingon K-pop.
Absolutely. That would be the perfect theme song for the original series.
I will tear the comm badge from my chest, take all of my Star Trek belongings out, and I will no longer consider myself a fan.
Because I'm going to burn it all.
We'll swear it off.
Oh, my.
He's going to be like me with Star Wars. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I will make you look like a disgruntled employee. No. I will burn it down.
All this to say, I did appreciate the finale. I felt like it was wrapped up enough for me, but still leaving room for them to, go do what they need to do. So
yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, good. Anything else about the Star Trek? Or what else do we have to talk about here? You were going to talk about the writer's strike. You still want to do that? Tell me a little bit about the writer's strike, Miles.
Well, all it is just there's a lot of shows that are delayed. Just a short list, and I picked the shows that were probably sci-fi related. The Handmaid's Tale, it's their last season, but that's going to be delayed. The Last of Us on Max, Daredevil, Born Again on Disney Plus. Now this is the one I'm upset about. Andor on Disney Plus, that's going to be delayed. Cobra Kai on Netflix. And it's not on the list, but this is what I was looking at. The Boys, the show that I feel bad about liking.
Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad.
So I'm sorry.
I will judge you. No.
But yeah, it's probably not going to be out till earlier in 24. I thought it would have been out, sometime this summer. That's what I remember it coming out last year. But and trying to find out when this was going to start, and it didn't have a definitive start date. It was some, hopefully in early 24, but that's not guaranteed.
Well, I'm perfectly fine with delays if it means that the writers and the actors are getting, getting what they should get for their work.
Yeah.
I appreciate their work, and I think that, people should be compensated for the work that they do in an adequate fashion. So I'm perfectly fine and content to wait, even though I don't like waiting. It takes too long.
Well, so selfishly, we want our shows back, right? But from the humanity part, we want these people to be, you know, compensated to figure out the whole AI thing and figure out how this works. So.
Well, and as I said on the previous episode, it's really not just about what's going on in their industry. I mean, some of the questions that they answer will spill over into other industries and to our larger culture. And so I do want them to end up on a humanistic answer, something that honors us as people and not necessarily corporations, because in the end, all of us will lose out, not just on our shows.
Mm-hmm.
Just culturally, we would lose. So keep fighting, writers. We're behind you.
Now, my fear is that this will go on long enough that the delays in production that we're looking at now for everything's going to be pushed back like a year, that there will be a period of time when everything that's in the pipe right now that's coming out is going to end. And now we're going to have months of nothing new coming out. Money gets tight for a lot of people now. I mean, the economy is not exactly in the best shape in the world. And people eventually, if they're not getting new content, are going to start canceling services. And it may even be after everybody comes to a happy median and everybody's back to work and everything's going, and then now these companies start losing the money that they were going to put into these new projects, and people are going to end up losing their jobs anyway, and we're not going to get the stuff that we want to get. That's my fear.
Well, hopefully the writers and the actors have sat down and thoroughly discussed and thought about their best alternative to a negotiated agreement, and have made contingency plans for such an event. I would hope that they had their guild has already come up with what they would do to move forward to support themselves, because otherwise next time that they call for a strike, they might not get it.
Right.
So they have right to self-determination, and they will figure it out. Unfortunately, this means that we may miss out on shows. Seasons may, maybe they were going to have a season 4 and they decide season 3 is it because, too much of a backlog of other projects. So unfortunately, when these things happen, we can lose out on some really great things, or like movies that got greenlit, won't get it anymore. So hopefully we'll see. And the sacrifices that must be made are ones that are worth it.
Yeah.
And there's a backlog. There's a lot of stuff that's still on the streaming channels that I thought, I wouldn't mind checking this out, but I have not because I'm watching my other shows. So,
Right.
If there's still stuff to watch. It's just just the new stuff that I watch consistently. Well, I might not see that for a year or longer.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
It is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, very good. Very good. Anything else on the news, Spike, before we get into the interview?
I think so.
I think that's good, right?
We covered it.
Yeah. So, Dave, Miles, tell us a little bit. We're going to share an interview with Robert Duncan McNeill. Tell us a little bit about how this interview came about. Where did it take place? Tell us a little bit about the premise of it before we share.
Well, Miles, go ahead. You're the one who got to interview him. I was not down there on Sunday for it.
Saturday, who's the gentleman that handles the
Don Ramsey.
Don Ramsey.
Yeah, he's like the guest liaison or something like that.
Yep.
So I think we went to him, and he knew who we were, and he said, "Okay, you're allowed to ask these 4 guests if they'd be open for interview." So I think I might have asked if could we ask other guests, and I didn't really get a great answer, so I didn't push it. I just figured, and they were really busy. I mean, they were very busy this year. A lot of people seeking autographs from Grace Park and the 2 folks from SG1 and Farscape, Ben Browder and Claudia Black. So I would have loved to have done an interview with those, but a lot of people there that weekend. So I went up to I was allowed to ask Robert Picardo. I was allowed to ask Robbie Duncan McNeill. I was allowed to ask guy who played Bortus. Last name is Macon. Peter Macon, and Aaron Douglas. So I went to them. First, I went to their handler. Listeners, if you podcast, if you're going to do a celebrity guest interview, work with the convention. Don't just go up to the celebrity guest. There's a right way to do this. Follow the rules. Work with the convention. It's just better that way. And if you don't get the interview, it's okay. That's not the end of the world. You want good relations with the convention and the people that work at the convention, and even the celebrity guests. I mean, you put a microphone in front of a celebrity guest's face. That's just not very classy. So I went to the handlers, and then I talked to each of the guests. Most of them were amenable. Well, everybody said they would. It just said, look, not sure how time is going to file, but check me when at such a time. Maybe we could do it then. So I didn't get Picardo. Picardo was very busy. He was doing all kinds of stuff that weekend. I did ask Peter Macon. He said, "I'm sorry, I'm just too busy." And I said, "That's fine. That's fine. It's great to see you. I hope you get another season with the Orville." And we shook hands, and that's another thing. Just if you don't get the interview, it's not the end of the world. You want to have good relations with the people at the convention.
Especially since they're going to be the ones that allow you to come back the following year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you want to treat the people that work the convention good, and you want to treat the celebrity guests good. So
Absolutely.
So next morning, I went up to Mr. McNeill's table and I said, "Hi, we spoke yesterday. It's kind of slow right now. If I get an interview with you, and if we need to pause, if you have any fans who want any time with you, not a problem." And he said, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." And he was very, very amenable. He couldn't have been nicer. And there was a moment in the convention in the interview where we had to stop for a second because he had a couple fans want pictures or whatever, and we resumed and it was fine. So, but we had a great conversation. I tried not to make it. We made a little bit about Voyager, but the man now has a career as a producer and director, and I kind of want to talk to him about what he's done since Voyager. So we delved a lot into that, and I'm grateful I had a chance to meet him. Just a class act, nice guy, and I'm glad that he had a lot of people wanting his autographs that weekend.
Awesome, very good. Well, here we are. We're going to share the interview with Robert Duncan McNeill, and then we'll be back afterwards.
Sci-fi fans, we're at Shore Leave 43, and we're hanging out with Mr. Robbie Duncan McNeill, executive producer and directing several episodes of Resident Alien. Mr. McNeill, for the last 20 years, has produced and directed the best shows on television, Chuck and The Orville, to name a few. Oh yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that sci-fi fans know and love him for playing Lieutenant Thomas Paris on Star Trek Voyager. Mr. McNeill, welcome, and thank you for taking time to talk with us on the Sci-Fi Dive Podcast.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
And great to meet you.
Nice to meet you. It's been a lot of fun this weekend at this convention. I haven't been to Shore Leave in 20 years. So
oh wow,
it's been great. Yeah.
And you and Bob Picardo have a great chemistry live.
Yes, we like to. Yeah, play around with each other for sure.
It's tremendous entertainment.
Yeah.
So not only are you an actor, director, and producer, but for the last couple of years, you've been a podcaster as well. I just want to know, I'm a loyal listener to the Delta Flyers.
And listeners, you do need to check out the podcast. I love hearing you and Mr. Garrett Wong's experiences and perspective on the episodes. What inspired you and Mr. Wong to want to undertake such an ambitious endeavor?
Well, it was really Garrett's idea. He's mentioned it in years past. He's like, you and I should have a talk show. Back when we made Star Trek Voyager, he would joke that when we got older, we would have like a late night talk show, and we would have banter and interview guests. And it's so funny, when the pandemic hit 3 years ago, about a month into it, he called me and he said, I've been thinking about that idea, and you're always so busy, he said, with your directing and producing, but now with this pandemic, you're not going to be working. Nobody's doing anything. What do you think about trying to do a podcast together? And at first I was a little reluctant. I didn't know if people would really listen or be interested. And I really wanted it to be, I wanted it to have a format and some kind of big idea behind it. It's not just us talking about whatever's on our minds. So we came up with a nice format, and the rewatch format, and all the different games that we play in the podcast and things, and it's turned out great. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
I always look forward to Monday mornings when it drops. So
yeah, it's done. I'm shocked at how it's literally millions and millions of people have downloaded the podcast, which just blows me away. It really does. I mean, it's done very, very well, and it's really brought a lot of the Star Trek fans together with a real sense of community and connection, especially during the pandemic when everybody felt so isolated.
Sure.
It was like a convention every Monday. You could sit down and listen to us talk, or interviews, or recaps, and feel connected to the Star Trek community. So it was great.
And tell some great stories along the way. When we think of hearing names like Robbie Duncan McNeill, Roxanne Dawson, and Jonathan Frakes, a lot of people's mind goes to famous TV directors and producers. But you got your start in acting. How has your background in acting helped you in your producing and directing?
Well, I think that as an actor, the job is to look at the character and the scenes and to think of creative ways of trying to make the most of the dramatic elements of that scene. The conflict, the turns in the scene. I use that expression a lot with actors, like, what is the turn? Where does the scene shift? What happens in this scene that drives our story forward? And how can we emotionally in our performances kind of make the most of that? So I look at scenes in a lot of ways as a director the same way I did as an actor, looking for emotional values that I can amplify, a way of moving the audience, of making them laugh or making them feel something, or be afraid, or So I think it's very helpful to have an acting background and then to approach directing with those same kind of ideas in mind. Yeah.
Cool. Huge fan of Resident Alien and Alan Tudyk. Can you tell us how you got the opportunity to produce Resident Alien?
Yeah, it's funny. Normally, I get a job having known someone, I worked with someone on the show before. For Resident Alien, I didn't know anyone, but I had read something in the trade papers about the show getting picked up, and I read something about it was based on a graphic novel, and it was a comedy. And science fiction and comedy are two of my favorite things. So I really enjoy working on shows that make people laugh. I love comedies. I've done a lot of comedies. And the fact that Alan Tudyk was a star of it, just all those things really piqued my interest. And so I reached out to my agent and said, hey, I'd love to try to get on this show. It sounds like something I'd like. And at first they had someone else that they were talking to, and then I was persistent and kept asking my agent, and eventually I got a meeting, and they got rid of the other guy and hired me. So,
well, Alan Tudyk, I mean, he's the right man for that part. But
Yeah.
I love what you did with the supporting characters. Their stories are interesting, also.
Yeah, it's a real ensemble show. It's the relationships and characters are what it's all about. So,
Any chance you have an inside scoop when season 3 is going to drop?
I think the plan is October, November this year, but this writer's strike has really, changed the calendar for everything. So we'll see. Hopefully it's October, November.
Okay.
But we've filmed it all, so it'll get there eventually.
Yeah. So what's new on the horizon for you? Is there a new project that we can be plugging?
Well, I've been doing this podcast with Garrett Wong, the Delta Flyers, and that's been a big part of my life the last few years. And we're wrapping up the recap, the rewatch of Voyager at the end of August, and then we're going to try to transition into something new there. So I've really enjoyed podcasting and creating sort of Patreon communities with the Delta Flyers. So I'd love to expand maybe some more content there. And other than that, no, A Resident Alien is really my full-time job right now, getting that wrapped up. And there's some other shows that I was a part of last year, True Lies for CBS, that got canceled, directed on that. And also a show called So Help Me Todd. I did one of the first episodes there, and they keep calling for me to come back and direct. So I'll probably be back at So Help Me Todd. And that's about it.
I'm excited to hear that you and Garrett will still be podcasting together.
That's our plan, transition into something in the same vein, but different kind of content with the Delta Flyers. And who knows, maybe there'll be more podcasts or more subjects that I could create, Patreon and podcast content. I really enjoy that. And I get to do it at home instead of traveling all over the world. That gets a little tiring after a while for filming, so it'd be nice to work at home for a while.
Fantastic. Mr. McNeill, it's a pleasure speaking with you today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, and we are back. So hopefully you enjoyed that interview. And please don't forget that Dave laid down a challenge earlier in this episode that we would love your feedback, what you're watching, but more importantly, that you send an email to the Sci-Fi Diner Podcast at gmail.com and say, I want Dave to give me free stuff, and he will do so. So make sure you do that, and then we'll be good to go. And if you leave us some comments, we'll be sure to read them out in the show and kind of give our thoughts on what you're saying.
Absolutely.
So, and we certainly appreciate you listening.
Absolutely.
All right, Miles. Were you going to say something, Dave?
No, sir.
No. All right. So Miles, why don't you take us out of the show here?
All right. Till next time, good night and good luck.
We'll see ya.
Leave your tips on the table.
And go boldly to sci-fi-diner-podcast.com. Facebook, the Sci-Fi Diner Podcast. Instagram, Sci-Fi Diner Podcast. And, of course,
now it's a Patreon, and they really came to this tips.
Patreon.com/sci-fi. Help us out. This show isn't free to make. And our YouTube channel, of course. Let's get those numbers up. They're rookie numbers. We can do better. You can see all the faces that Chrissy and I make at each other through this whole thing. Her rude gestures to us now and again. It's really
lies they tell about me. I don't know what they're talking about.
And even if you're lucky
all
now,
AI generated.
that's it.
It's not real. It's AI.
Yeah, this is deep fake stuff.
fake
I will
stuff.
have you
That's
know.
right.
I have never flicked anyone off on this show or
I am
dropped
an
an F-bomb.
I am an amateur video editor. I am not capable of deep fake creation. This is all real, folks. This is all real. But
to be fair, Dave does have robots working for him, so they could do it for him.
See, I knew it.
those things can't even drive past a railing without thinking it's a cliff and stop, and I have to go run. That's a whole different tale. But yes, check it out. YouTube, the Sci-Fi Diner Podcast on YouTube. Let's get those views up. Click subscribe, get notified, and be part of this great community. The more you guys like it, the more we'll hopefully start putting different things out there. Leave me your feedback.
Yeah, so absolutely. All right. Well, it's been wonderful, guys.